The bullet ripped through Marcus Webb's shoulder before his scream could escape his throat. He'd thrown himself over a girl he'd never spoken to, a girl whose name he didn't even know, and now his blood was pooling on the diner floor while gunfire shattered every window around them. His back was on fire. His lungs couldn't find air. And beneath him the girl was screaming words that made no sense. "My father will kill them all." What Marcus didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that her father was Victor Iron Hand Stokes, vice president of the Iron Wolves MC. And the Iron Wolves always collected their debts. If you want to see how this story unfolds, subscribe to my channel and stay until the end. Drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Marcus Webb had spent 17 years learning how to disappear. Not magically, not dramatically. Just the slow, quiet kind of vanishing that happens when nobody bothers to look for you in the first place. He moved through the hallways of Blue Ridge High like smoke, like a ghost wearing thrift store clothes and shoes held together with determination. Teachers forgot to call on him. Students looked through him. Even the bullies, those cruel boys who made sport of destroying anyone different, had stopped bothering with Marcus months ago. He wasn't worth the effort. That's what invisibility bought you. Safety through insignificance. Survival through silence. Marcus had perfected it. His foster mother, Mrs. Delacroix, was 73 years old and barely remembered his name most days. She called him boy or child, or sometimes Henry, which was her dead husband's name. Marcus didn't correct her. He just made sure she took her pills, kept her kitchen clean, and stayed out of her way. In 6 months, he'd age out of the foster system. 18 years old, with nothing but the clothes on his back and the 2 jobs that kept him fed. Nights at the Gas and Go on Highway 12. Weekends at Miller's Auto Shop changing oil and rotating tires for cash under the table. Sleep was a luxury. Food was a negotiation. Hope was something other people had. But Marcus wasn't bitter. Bitterness required energy, and energy was too precious to waste on feelings that changed nothing. He just survived. 1 day at a time. 1 hour at a time. 1 breath at a time. And then Elena Stokes walked into his life. She appeared at Blue Ridge High 3 weeks before the shooting, materializing in Marcus's AP English class, like she'd been conjured from somewhere expensive. Dark hair that fell past her shoulders. Green eyes that held secrets. A face so beautiful it made the other girls in class immediately hate her. But it was her expression that caught Marcus's attention. She wasn't just beautiful. She was terrified. She hid it well. Most people probably saw confidence in the way she held her shoulders, saw aloofness in the way she kept her distance, saw arrogance in the way she rejected every boy who approached her. Marcus saw fear. He recognized it because he'd worn that same mask for 17 years. "Miss Elena Stokes," Mr. Patterson announced, gesturing toward the empty seat in the back row. "Transfer student from Raleigh. Please make her feel welcome." Nobody made her feel welcome. The pretty girls whispered behind their hands. The popular boys made bets about who'd date her first. The normal kids just stared. Elena walked to the back of the room, her designer backpack worth more than everything Marcus owned combined, and sat down without looking at anyone. Their eyes met for exactly 2 seconds. Marcus looked away first. Some survival instincts you couldn't override. The first time Marcus saw Elena outside of school, his heart nearly stopped. She was at Dusty's Diner. Dusty's was Marcus's sanctuary, a rundown burger joint on the wrong side of town where coffee cost 99 cents and nobody asked questions about the skinny kid who nursed a single cup for 2 hours while doing homework. It wasn't a place for girls like Elena Stokes. But there she was, sitting in the booth by the front window, pushing a salad around her plate, like it had personally offended her. She wore earbuds, had a calculus textbook open, and radiated an aura of "leave me alone," so powerful that even Dusty himself kept his distance. Marcus took his usual booth in the back corner near the emergency exit and tried not to stare. He failed. She came back the next day, and the day after that. Same booth, same salad, same textbook, same earbuds. By the 5th day, Marcus realized something was wrong. Elena wasn't just eating alone. She was hiding. Every few minutes, her eyes would flick to the window. She'd scan the parking lot, the street, the cars passing by. Her shoulders never fully relaxed. Her phone was always clutched in her left-hand thumb, hovering over the screen like she was ready to make a call at any moment. Marcus knew that look. He'd seen it in the mirror every morning of his childhood. Something was coming for Elena Stokes, and she knew it. "You're staring again." Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. His eyes snapped up to find Dusty himself standing beside his booth, a pot of coffee in one hand and a knowing look on his weathered face. "What, no? I wasn't. Boy, I've been serving coffee for 43 years. I know when a young man's got his eyes on a pretty girl." Dusty refilled Marcus's cup without being asked. "She's been coming in every day for 2 weeks. You've been pretending not to look at her for just as long." Marcus's face burned. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't." Dusty chuckled. "Word of advice, if you're gonna look, look. If you're gonna talk, talk. Life's too short for maybes." "I can't just talk to her." "Why not your mouth broken?" "She's..." Marcus gestured helplessly toward Elena's booth. "She's her, and I'm me." Dusty's expression softened. "Son, I've seen you in here for 2 years, never causing trouble, never complaining, working harder than kids twice your age. You think you're nothing special?" Marcus didn't answer. He didn't have to. "That's what I thought." Dusty shook his head. "You're wrong, you know. Dead wrong. But you'll figure that out eventually." He walked away, leaving Marcus with a full cup of coffee and an empty feeling in his chest. Elena left 20 minutes later, without ever noticing Marcus existed, just like everyone else. The gray sedan appeared on a Tuesday, October 15th. Marcus would remember that date for the rest of his life. He was in his usual booth pretending to work on a history essay while actually watching Elena pretend to work on calculus. The sun was setting, painting the diner's grimy windows in shades of orange and red. The sedan cruised past at 4:47 p.m. Marcus noticed it the way he noticed everything automatically, subconsciously, the way you notice a rattlesnake before your brain even registers the danger. Something about the car was wrong. The windows too dark, the speed too slow, the driver's head turning toward the diner as he passed. 4 minutes later, the sedan came back. Same slow crawl, same dark windows, same wrongness radiating from every inch of its dented frame. Marcus's stomach tightened. His coffee suddenly tasted like acid. "Don't be paranoid," he muttered to himself. "It's just a car. People drive past diners all the time." But his hands were shaking. And when the sedan appeared for the 3rd time at 4:58 p.m., moving even slower, now Marcus knew. He knew the way prey knows when predators are circling. He knew the way children who grew up in dangerous places know when danger is about to explode. His eyes found Elena. She was bent over her textbook, oblivious, her dark hair falling across her face like a curtain. She had no idea. She couldn't see what was coming. The sedan stopped directly in front of her window. Marcus's heart slammed against his ribs. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." The passenger window rolled down. A hand emerged from the darkness inside the car. The hand held a gun. Time didn't slow down the way movies promised it would. It shattered. 1 second, Marcus was in his booth, frozen, terrified, just another invisible boy watching the world happen around him. The next second, his body was moving, his legs pumping, his voice tearing from his throat with a scream he didn't plan. Lie down. 12 feet separated his booth from Elena's. 12 feet between life and death. Marcus covered them in 3 strides, his worn sneakers slipping on the greasy floor, his arms reaching for a girl who'd never once looked at him, a girl whose name he'd only learned from roll call, a girl who was about to die unless he did something impossibly stupid. Elena's head snapped up. Her green eyes found his face. Confusion first, then recognition of the terror in his expression, then her gaze tracking past him to the window, to the gun, to death itself, staring back at her. Her mouth opened to scream. Marcus hit her like a linebacker. His shoulder caught her chest. His arms wrapped around her waist. His momentum carried them both backward and down as bullets began to fly. The world exploded. Glass shattered inward, transforming into 1,000 crystalline daggers that sliced through the air where Elena's head had been half a second earlier. Wood splintered. Vinyl seats erupted. Someone was screaming multiple someones, and the thunder of gunfire was so loud it felt like the sky was falling. Marcus twisted as they crashed to the floor, putting his back to the window, putting his body between Elena and the bullets, putting everything he was and everything he'd ever been in the path of death. Fire bloomed across his shoulder blade. The first bullet. Another burning kiss punched through his side just above his belt line. The second bullet. A dozen smaller explosions of pane glass shards, wood splinters, shrapnel from a war he'd never enlisted in ripped through his back and arms. But beneath him, warm and trembling and alive, Elena was untouched. The gunfire stopped. Silence rushed in to fill the void, broken only by car alarms and distant screaming and the wet, labored sound of Marcus's breathing. He tried to push himself up, tried to check if Elena was okay. But his arms weren't working right. Everything felt distant and wrong and fading. "Don't move." Elena's voice was sharp with terror. "Oh God, don't move. There's so much blood. You're bleeding everywhere." Marcus could feel it now, warm and sticky, soaking through his shirt, pooling beneath them both. His blood, from the holes in his back. "Are you okay?" Marcus managed. His voice sounded strange, far away. "I'm okay. You're shot. Elena was crying now, her hands on his face, her green eyes swimming with tears. "Why did you do that? You don't even know me. Why would you? Seemed like—" Marcus tried to smile. It probably looked more like a grimace. Seemed like the thing to do. His vision was tunneling now, darkness creeping in from the edges like a tide that couldn't be stopped. "Stay with me," Elena's voice cracked. "Please stay with me. Help is coming. Just stay with me." Marcus wanted to tell her that he'd been invisible his whole life, that nobody had ever asked him to stay before, that her voice was the most beautiful thing he'd ever heard. But the darkness was too strong. The last thing he saw was Elena's face hovering above him like a moon, beautiful and terrible and streaked with tears. The last thing he heard was the thunder of motorcycle engines, dozens of them, getting closer. The last thing he felt was Elena's hand gripping his, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a world gone mad. Then, nothing. Elena Stokes had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. Not this specific moment, a boy she'd never spoken to bleeding out beneath her in a destroyed diner while sirens wailed in the distance, but a moment like it. A moment when her father's world finally caught up with her. when you're the daughter of Victor Iron Hand Stokes, vice president of the Iron Wolves MC. You learn certain things young. You learn that the men who come to your birthday parties carry guns beneath their leather cuts. You learn that business trip means someone might die before your father comes home. You learn that love and violence live side by side in the same heart, and the men who'd kill for you are the same men who'd die for you. Elena had been raised in that world, protected by it, suffocated by it. 3 weeks ago, when the Demon Riders firebombed the Iron Wolves clubhouse in Raleigh, that world had collapsed around her. The war had started, and Elena had become a target. Her father had moved her to Blue Ridge under a fake name, enrolled her in a school where nobody knew her face, surrounded her with prospects disguised as college students who carried concealed weapons and knew 17 ways to kill a man with their bare hands. She'd been told to be invisible. Ironic, really. She'd spent her whole life being too visible. Her father's princess. The Iron Wolves' protected treasure. The girl everyone wanted to get close to because of who she was. And now she was supposed to disappear. She'd been doing so well. Until today. Until a boy with sad eyes and discount clothes threw himself into a hail of bullets meant for her heart. "Stay with me," Elena begged, pressing her hands against his back, feeling hot blood pulse between her fingers. "Please, please stay with me." The motorcycle engines were getting closer. Elena recognized their sound, the deep, throaty roar of Harleys running in formation. Her father's men, coming for her. She fumbled for her phone with blood-slicked fingers, found the speed dial, hit the button. Her father answered on the first ring. "Code red." Elena's voice came out steadier than she felt. Training. Her father had drilled these protocols since she was 8 years old. "Dusty's Diner on Highway 12. They found me." "Are you hit?" Victor's voice was granite. Cold. Controlled. "I'm fine, but the boy who saved me." Elena looked down at Marcus's pale face, at the blood bubbling between his lips. "Dad, he's dying. He threw himself on me. He took the bullets. He's dying." Silence on the line. 1 heartbeat. 2. "Prospects are 90 seconds out. Ambulance is 3 minutes. Keep pressure on the wounds." A pause. "What's the boy's name?" "I don't know. I don't..." Elena's voice cracked. "I never asked his name." "Find out." The line went dead. Elena dropped the phone and pressed both palms against Marcus's back again, feeling his life pump out between her fingers while chaos erupted around her. People were running, screaming, trampling each other toward the exits. Dusty himself was on the phone with 911, his voice shaking. The smell of gunpowder mixed with burnt coffee and teenage terror. "Stay with me," Elena whispered. "You don't get to die. You hear me? You don't get to die saving someone you've never even talked to. That's not how this works." The motorcycles arrived. 12 of them, maybe more, roaring into the parking lot with a thunder that shook what remained of the windows. Men in leather cuts surrounded the building bikes, positioned nose-out engines, idling hands, resting on weapons. The Iron Wolves had arrived. 2 of them, Tank and Shadow, Elena's usual guardians, burst through the destroyed entrance. Tank was 6'5", and built like his namesake, his shaved head covered in Nordic runes. Shadow was leaner, quieter, his dark eyes missing nothing. "Princess." Tank dropped to one knee beside her. "You good? I'm not the one bleeding out." Elena's control was cracking. "Help him. He saved me. Help him." Shadow was already pulling a trauma kit from his cut. "Entry wounds upper back, through and through." He rolled Marcus slightly, and Elena saw the blood-soaked front of the boy's shirt. "Lungs might be punctured. He's drowning." Then do something. Tank's massive hands moved with surprising gentleness, packing gauze into the wounds, while Shadow set up an IV line. These weren't EMTs, but in the MC world, you learned to treat gunshot wounds, or you didn't survive long. The ambulance arrived 90 seconds later. As the paramedics loaded Marcus onto a stretcher, Elena tried to follow. Tank's hand on her shoulder stopped her. Your dad's orders. You ride with us. But now, Princess. Elena looked back at Marcus's unconscious form one last time. His face was so pale it looked like paper. His dark hair was matted with blood. And his hand, the hand that had reached for her, that had pulled her down, that had held hers as darkness took him, hung limp over the edge of the stretcher. His name is Marcus, Elena said suddenly, remembering the roll call in AP English. Marcus Webb. Tank nodded once. I'll tell your father. Then they were moving the entire convoy roaring away from Dusty's diner as police cars began to arrive. Elena climbed onto the back of Shadow's bike, wrapped her arms around his leather-clad waist, and held on as they raced toward the Iron Wolves compound. Behind her, sirens wailed. In front of her, vengeance waited. And somewhere in between, a boy named Marcus Webb was fighting for his life. A boy she'd never spoken to. A boy who'd given everything for a stranger. A boy who had no idea what he'd just earned or what it would cost him. Victor Iron Hand Stokes was not a man who feared many things. At 44 years old, he'd survived 3 stints in prison, 2 assassination attempts, and 1 marriage that ended when cancer took his wife 6 years ago. He'd broken bones, his own and others. He'd buried friends. He'd made enemies disappear. Fear was for other people. But when his phone rang, and his daughter's voice said, "Code Red," Victor felt something cold wrap around his heart and squeeze. He was at the compound when the call came reviewing intelligence on the Demon Riders, with Ghost the Iron Wolves president. Maps spread across the table, names circled in red, a war council in the making. The war had been building for months. Territory disputes, drug routes, the usual blood and money conflicts that defined their world. But 2 weeks ago, the Demon Riders had crossed a line firebombing the Raleigh clubhouse, putting 3 brothers in the hospital and 1 in the ground. And now they'd tried to kill Elena, his daughter, the only thing left of his wife, the only thing that mattered. How bad? Ghost asked, as Victor ended the call. Drive by at the diner. She's unhurt. And the shooter's unknown, but there's a complication. Victor's jaw tightened. A civilian took the bullets. Some kid from her school. Ghost's eyebrows rose. He covered her, threw himself on top of her. 2 rounds in the back. Victor was already moving toward the door. He's being transported to Mercy General. Victor. Ghost's voice stopped him. If this kid dies, then we owe his family a debt we can never repay. Victor turned back, and his expression was carved from stone. And if he lives, we owe him everything. Ghost nodded slowly. The Demon Riders. You want to hit them tonight? I want them burned to the ground. But first... Victor's hands clenched into fists. First, I need to see my daughter, and I need to meet the boy stupid enough to take bullets for a stranger. 20 minutes later, Victor's convoy roared through the gates of the Iron Wolves compound. Elena was waiting on the front steps, changed out of her blood-soaked clothes, her face scrubbed clean, but her eyes still red from crying. She ran to him. Victor caught her in his arms, holding her the way he'd held her when she was small, when she'd had nightmares, when the world was scary, and Daddy could fix everything. She wasn't small anymore, but she was still his. "I'm okay," Elena mumbled against his chest. "I'm okay, Dad." "I know." Victor stroked her hair with hands that had killed men, that had broken bones, that could crush a man's throat without effort. Hands that were infinitely gentle with his daughter. "I know, baby girl. You're safe now. The boy Marcus he's in surgery, Tank's at the hospital with updates." Victor pulled back, holding her at arm's length. "Tell me what happened." "Everything." So she did. She told him about the gray sedan circling, about the warning shout, about a boy she'd never spoken to crossing 12 feet of diner in less than 2 seconds to tackle her to the ground, about the bullets punching through his back, about his blood soaking through both of them while he asked if she was okay. "He didn't know who I was." Elena's voice cracked. "He just saw the gun and he moved. No hesitation. No thought about himself. He just moved." Victor was quiet for a long moment. "What's his story, this Marcus Webb?" "I don't know. He's in my English class, but he never talks. He sits in the back, wears old clothes. I think maybe he's poor." Elena shook her head. "I never paid attention to him before today." "Tank," Victor spoke into his phone. "I need everything on Marcus Webb, high school senior at Blue Ridge High. Full background. I want to know who this kid is, where he came from, and who's responsible for him. 1 hour." The call ended. Victor turned back to Elena, and his expression shifted. The cold fury was still there, but beneath it was something she rarely saw in her father's eyes. Respect. "You know what he did. What it means. He saved my life." "More than that," Victor's voice was grave. "He threw himself on bullets without knowing you, without knowing me, without any expectation of reward or recognition. That's not bravery, baby girl. That's something else entirely." "What honor?" Victor nodded slowly. "That boy has honor. And honor like that deserves to be repaid. How do we repay someone for almost dying?" Victor's smile was thin. "We start by making sure he doesn't actually die, and then we make sure nobody ever threatens him again." He glanced toward the clubhouse where Ghost and the others were waiting. "The Demon Riders wanted to send a message today. They wanted to show they could strike at us anywhere, anytime. And instead, they created a debt that the Iron Wolves will honor until every last one of them is dead or in prison." Victor's eyes went cold, and they reminded me why I do what I do, why we all do what we do. "Why's that, Dad? To protect the innocent, the ones who can't protect themselves." He cupped Elena's face in his massive hands. "That boy protected you today. Now it's our turn to protect him. That's how this works. That's what it means to be Iron Wolves." Elena nodded, tears threatening again. "Go rest," Victor said gently. "I'll wake you when there's news about Marcus." She headed inside, and Victor watched her go. Then he turned toward the clubhouse, toward the War Council, waiting for him, toward the vengeance that had to be delivered. The Demon Riders had made a mistake today. They'd thought attacking Elena would weaken the Iron Wolves. Instead, they'd given Victor something more dangerous than rage. They'd given him purpose and a debt to repay. Marcus Webb dreamed of fire. He was running through flames, his skin blistering his lungs, filling with smoke. Someone was screaming a girl's voice, terrified, desperate, and Marcus kept running toward the sound even as the fire consumed him. "Stay with me," the voice called. "Please stay with me." And Marcus tried. God, how he tried. but the darkness was stronger than the fire, and eventually even the screaming faded away. The beeping pulled him back. Slow at first, distant, like an alarm clock in another room muffled by walls and sleep. Then louder, more insistent, demanding attention. Beep, beep, beep. Marcus tried to open his eyes. The effort felt monumental, like lifting weights with his eyelids. "Easy there, kid. Don't rush it." A voice he didn't recognize. Deep, calm, somehow reassuring despite its rumble. Marcus forced his eyes open. White ceiling, fluorescent lights, the smell of antiseptic and floor wax, a machine beside him making that infernal beeping sound. Hospital. Memory crashed back like a wave. The gun, the window, Elena's face. The bullets. Marcus tried to sit up and agony exploded across his back. "Whoa, whoa, whoa." Hands pressed him back down. Gentle, but firm. "I said easy. You got 2 holes in your back that are still figuring out how to heal. Moving fast isn't on your schedule for a while." Marcus turned his head carefully, so carefully toward the voice. The man sitting beside his bed looked like he'd been assembled from spare parts at a truck stop. Massive. Bald. Covered in tattoos that disappeared beneath a leather vest emblazoned with patches and pins. Iron Wolves MC, the rockers read. The man's road name stitched above his heart was Tank. Marcus's mouth was too dry to form words. His throat felt like sandpaper. Tank noticed. He reached for a plastic cup with a straw, held it to Marcus's lips. "Small sips. Don't chug or you'll puke, and trust me, puking with holes in your back is not a fun time." Marcus drank. The water was the most glorious thing he'd ever tasted. "Better," Marcus nodded. "Where?" His voice came out as a croak. "Elena, is she? The princess is fine. Not a scratch on her." Tank's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Thanks to you." Relief flooded through Marcus, so intense it nearly blotted out the pain. She was okay. He'd done it. She was alive. "How long was I?" 16 hours. "You coded twice on the table. Doctor said if that second bullet had been half an inch to the right, you'd be paralyzed or dead." Tank leaned back in his chair, which groaned under his weight. "Got lucky, kid." Marcus didn't feel lucky. He felt like someone had set his entire back on fire and then beaten the flames out with a baseball bat. "My foster mother." The thought cut through the pain fog. "Mrs. Delacroix. She doesn't, I need to." Already handled. "Ghost. He's our president, sent someone to explain the situation. She's been here twice already. Sweet old lady. Doesn't speak much English, but she hugs hard." Marcus stared at the biker. "You took care of her. You threw yourself on bullets meant for one of ours. Taking care of your people is the least we can do." Tank's eyes met Marcus's, and there was something in them that Marcus couldn't quite identify. Respect, maybe. Or curiosity. "Speaking of which, the VP wants to see you. You up for a visitor? The VP, Victor Stokes, Elena's father." Marcus's heart rate spiked. The heart monitor betrayed him immediately, beeping faster. Tank chuckled. "Relax. He's not here to hurt you. Quite the opposite." He stood up, and Marcus realized the man was even bigger than he'd seemed sitting down. Easily 6'5", built like an industrial refrigerator. "But fair warning, Vic's intense. Don't take it personal if he looks at you like he's trying to figure out what you're made of. That's just how he operates." Tank walked to the door, opened it, and nodded to someone in the hallway. A moment later, Victor, Iron Hand Stokes, walked in, and Marcus understood immediately why they called him Iron Hand. The man radiated danger the way a furnace radiates heat. It wasn't just his size, though he was massive. It wasn't just his scars, though his face looked like it had lost arguments with broken bottles and won arguments with worse. It was something in his eyes, something cold and calculating and utterly unafraid. Victor Stokes had looked at death so many times that death probably blinked first. He crossed to the bed in 3 strides, grabbed a chair, and sat down so close that Marcus could smell leather and gun oil and something that might have been expensive bourbon. For a long moment, Victor just stared. Marcus forced himself not to look away. "Marcus Webb," Victor finally said. His voice was gravel in a cement mixer. "That's your name?" "Yes, sir." "You're 17, senior at Blue Ridge High, foster kid, 2 jobs, gas station and mechanic shop, living with an elderly woman who's not technically your legal guardian anymore." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You looked into me." "I look into everyone who enters my daughter's life." Victor's expression didn't change. "Especially people who throw themselves on bullets for her." "I didn't know who she was. I just saw the gun, and I know." Victor cut him off. "That's the point. You didn't know who she was. You didn't know who I was. You had no reason to think there'd be any reward for what you did. You just saw a girl in danger, and you moved." He leaned closer. "Do you understand how rare that is? Most people freeze. Most people run away. Most people think about themselves first, second, and third." Victor's eyes bored into Marcus. "You didn't think at all. You just acted. And you almost died for it." Marcus didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. "Tell me something, Marcus Webb." Victor's voice dropped. "Why, what made you do it?" Marcus considered the question. Really considered it. "I've been invisible my whole life," he said finally. "Nobody sees me. Nobody cares whether I live or die. But when I saw that gun pointed at her," he met Victor's eyes. "For the first time in my life, I saw something that mattered more than staying invisible, more than staying safe." He swallowed. "I couldn't let her die. Not when I could stop it." Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. "You saved my daughter's life. That means you saved the only thing in this world that matters to me." Victor reached out and gripped Marcus's forearm. His hand was rough, calloused, scarred. The hand of a man who'd lived hard and fought harder. "That debt doesn't get repaid with cash or handshakes. It gets repaid with blood and loyalty. Do you understand?" "Not really," Marcus admitted. Something that might have been a smile flickered across Victor's face. "You will. Soon." He released Marcus's arm and stood. "Get some rest. Heal up. When you're ready, we'll talk about what comes next." "What comes next?" Victor paused at the door and looked back. "You stopped being invisible the moment you took those bullets, Marcus Webb. Whether you like it or not, you're part of something bigger now. Something that protects its own. And if I don't want to be part of something bigger..." Victor's smile widened. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who'd found something interesting. "Then you're smarter than you look. But it doesn't matter what you want." He opened the door. "The Iron Wolves pay their debts. And right now we owe you everything." He walked out his boots, heavy on the linoleum floor. Marcus lay there, staring at the ceiling, his mind reeling. What the hell had he gotten himself into? Elena came an hour later. She slipped through the door like she was afraid of being caught carrying a backpack stuffed with what looked like schoolwork and wearing an oversized sweater that probably belonged to one of the Iron Wolves. She looked younger than she did at school, more vulnerable, more real. "Hey." Her voice was soft, almost shy. "Hey." Marcus tried to sit up, grimaced, and settled for propping himself slightly against the pillows. "Don't." Elena rushed forward, her hands hovering like she wanted to help, but wasn't sure how. "You'll hurt yourself. The doctor said you need to stay still." The doctor isn't the one who's been lying in the same position for 16 hours. Something that might have been a smile tugged at Elena's lips. "Fair point." She pulled a chair close to the bed, the same chair her father had occupied, and sat down, her hands clasped in her lap. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "I brought your homework," Elena finally said. "Mrs.? Patterson was worried you'd fall behind. I told her you were recovering from a car accident." "A car accident?" What was I supposed to say? Marcus Webb threw himself on bullets meant for me because my dad is the VP of a motorcycle club and a rival gang tried to assassinate me? Marcus felt his lips twitch. That probably would have raised some questions. Probably. More silence. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who'd been through something together, something that had changed them both. "Thank you," Elena said quietly, "for what you did." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do." Her green eyes found his, and there was something in them that made Marcus's breath catch. "You didn't know me. You'd never even talked to me, and you almost died saving my life." She shook her head slowly. "I've been surrounded by men who'd kill for me my whole life. Bodyguards, prospects, brothers, they'd all take a bullet for me, because my father told them to. Because it's their job." She leaned forward. "But you did it for no reason. You did it because you saw someone in trouble and you couldn't stand by." "I saw you," Marcus corrected softly. "I saw you, and I couldn't let you die." Elena's eyes glistened. "Why, you don't even know me." "I wanted to." The words came out before Marcus could stop them. "I watched you at the diner every day. Not in a creepy way, just..." He fumbled for words. "You seemed sad, lonely, and I understood that. I'm invisible to everyone at that school, but I noticed you. I wanted to know you." A tear slipped down Elena's cheek. She wiped it away quickly like she was embarrassed. "Well, you definitely got my attention now." Despite everything, the pain, the fear, the utter insanity of the past 24 hours, Marcus laughed. It hurt his back. He didn't care. "So what happens now?" he asked. Elena took his hand. Her fingers were warm, real alive. "Now you heal? And when you're better?" "When I'm better?" She smiled, and it was equal parts promise and warning. "When you're better, we figure out what it means to be family with the Iron Wolves." Marcus looked at her, this beautiful, dangerous girl who'd turned his invisible life upside down. "I have a feeling my life is about to get very complicated." "Probably." Elena squeezed his hand. "But you won't be facing it alone. Not anymore." For the first time in 17 years, Marcus Webb believed that might actually be true. 3 days in a hospital bed taught Marcus Webb something he'd never known before. Boredom could be worse than pain. The painkillers dulled the fire in his back to a manageable throb. Physical therapy started on day 2, gentle exercises that made him feel like an infant learning to move. Nurses checked his vitals every 4 hours, doctors poked at his wounds and made thoughtful noises, and the Iron Wolves rotated guards outside his door like he was the President of the United States. But the worst part was the waiting. Waiting to heal. Waiting to understand. Waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because Marcus had learned long ago that good things didn't happen to kids like him. And everything that had happened since the shooting, the protection, the paid bills, the promise of family, felt too good to be true. "You're thinking too hard." Marcus looked up to find Tank standing in the doorway holding 2 paper cups of coffee. "How can you tell? Your face gets all scrunched up like you're trying to solve calculus in your head. Tank handed him one of the cups and settled into the chair that had become permanently stationed beside Marcus's bed. What's eating you? Marcus hesitated. Then, because Tank had been nothing but straight with him for 2 weeks passed, and Marcus began to believe he might actually survive this new life. He moved into the guest quarters at the compound, a small but clean room with a bed, a desk, and a window that overlooked the parking lot where brothers worked on their bikes. Mrs. Delacroix had a full-time nurse now paid for by the club, and Marcus visited her every other day to make sure she was eating properly and taking her medications. School became almost normal. Almost. The bikers no longer escorted him to class, but everyone knew. The whispers followed him through the hallways like shadows. The invisible boy had become visible, and visibility came with its own kind of weight. But Elena made it bearable. They ate lunch together every day, studied together in the afternoons, held hands when they thought no one was looking, though someone was always looking. "You're getting soft," Tank told Marcus one evening, catching him smiling at his phone after Elena texted goodnight. "I'm getting happy. There's a difference," Tank grunted, but there was something almost like approval in his eyes. Then the demon riders struck again. Marcus was in his room finishing a history essay when his phone exploded with notifications. Group texts from numbers he didn't recognize. Emergency alerts from the club's internal system. He ran outside to find the compound in chaos. Brothers were mounting bikes, grabbing weapons, shouting orders. Victor stood at the center of it all, his phone pressed to his ear, his face carved from granite. "What happened?" Marcus grabbed Tank's arm as the big man jogged past. "Safe house on Miller Road. The demons firebombed it." Marcus's blood went cold. "Was anyone—" "2 brothers inside, Hawk and Diesel." Tank's jaw tightened. "They're alive, but barely. 3rd-degree burns. They're being transported to the trauma center now." "Oh God. This is war, kid. Real war." Tank pulled free. "Stay here. Stay inside. Don't come out until someone tells you it's safe." He was gone before Marcus could respond. Marcus stood in the chaos, watching men he'd come to know. Men who'd shaken his hand and welcomed him into their family prepare for violence. Their faces were hard-focused, deadly. This was what he'd signed up for. This was the world he'd chosen. Elena found him 20 minutes later, her face pale, her hands shaking. "Did you hear?" "Yeah, Tank told me. Hawk's in surgery. They're not sure if he'll make it." Her voice cracked. "He taught me to ride when I was 14. He called me Little Princess until I threatened to key his bike." Marcus pulled her into his arms. She buried her face against his chest and shook. Not crying, just trembling with a fear that had no outlet. "This is my fault," she whispered. "What, no? Elena, this isn't. They came after me first. When the shooting failed, they escalated. They're trying to break my father by hitting everyone around him." She pulled back, and her green eyes were wet. "People are getting hurt because of me. People are getting hurt because the demon riders are animals. That's not on you. Try telling that to Hawk when he's lying in a burn unit." Before Marcus could respond, Victor appeared behind them. "Elena, inside, now!" His voice brooked no argument. Elena squeezed Marcus's hand once and disappeared into the main building. Victor turned to Marcus, and something in his expression made Marcus's stomach drop. "Walk with me." They walked in silence to the edge of the compound, away from the chaos, until Victor finally spoke. The attack on the safe house wasn't random. They knew exactly when to hit, exactly who would be inside. Victor's hands clenched into fists. "We have a leak." Marcus's heart stuttered. "A leak? Someone in the club?" "Maybe. Or someone close to the club. Victor's eyes found Marcus's. I'm not accusing you. If I thought you were the leak, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But I need to ask, have you talked to anyone outside the club about our business? Anyone at all? No, I swear, I haven't told anyone anything. Victor studied him for a long moment. Whatever he saw in Marcus's face seemed to satisfy him. Good. I believe you. He turned back toward the compound. But someone's talking. And until I find out who, everyone's a suspect. The next morning, things got worse. Marcus was walking Elena to her first class when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and all the color drained from her face. What? Marcus asked. Elena, what is it? She didn't answer, just handed him the phone with trembling hands. It was a photo. Elena entering the school building, Elena at her locker, Elena in the cafeteria laughing at something Marcus had said. And beneath the photos a message, "We see you. We're watching. The wolves can't protect you forever." Oh God, Marcus breathed. They're here. Elena's voice was barely audible. They're at the school. We need to call your father. I can't. She grabbed his arm. If I call him, he'll pull me out. He'll lock me in the compound and never let me leave. I can't live like that, Marcus. I can't. Elena, they're threatening you. They're watching you. This isn't... I know what this is. Her eyes hardened. This is them trying to scare me, trying to make me run. And if I run, they win. And if they do more than take pictures... Elena didn't answer. She just stared at the phone in Marcus's hand. Her jaw set her fear wrestling with her pride. We have to tell someone, Marcus said finally. If not your father, then Tank, or Ghost, someone. Fine, but not my father. Not yet. She took her phone back and deleted the message. I'll tell Tank after school. Until then, we act normal. We don't let them see us scared. Marcus wanted to argue. Every instinct he had screamed that this was wrong, that they were in danger, that pretending everything was fine was a mistake. But he also understood Elena's need for autonomy. She'd spent her whole life being protected, controlled, kept safe in a golden cage. He wouldn't be the one to lock the door again. Okay, he said. But I'm not leaving your side until we talk to Tank. Deal. They made it through first period. Through second period. Through lunch where they sat surrounded by oblivious classmates who had no idea that killers might be watching through the cafeteria windows. In third period, everything fell apart. Marcus was in AP history when his phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. Look outside. His heart stopped. He glanced at the window, and there it was, a black SUV parked across the street. Tinted windows. Engine running. A man in the passenger seat watching the school. The same type of SUV that had tried to kill Elena at Dusty's diner. Marcus's hand shot up. Mr. Peterson, I need to use the bathroom. Can it wait? No, sir, it really can't. He was out the door before the teacher could respond. Running down the hallway, pulling out his phone, dialing Tank's number. Yeah, they're here, at the school. Black SUV parked across the street. They sent me a text telling me to look outside. Tank's voice went ice cold. Where's the princess? English class, second floor. Get her. Get her now. Take her to the front office and stay there until we arrive. Do not go outside. Do you understand me? Yes. We're 5 minutes out. Move! Marcus ran. He burst into Elena's English class without knocking, ignoring the teacher's outraged protest. Elena's eyes found his, and she knew immediately. We need to go, Marcus said. Now! She grabbed her bag and followed him without question. Mrs. Patterson's voice echoed behind them. Mr. Webb, Miss Stokes, you cannot simply... But they were already gone. The SUV. Elena asked as they moved through the hallway. Across the street. Tank's on his way. How long? 5 minutes. Elena's jaw tightened. That's a long time. They made it to the front office in under a minute. The secretary looked up, startled by their entrance. We need to stay here, Marcus said. Please, it's an emergency. Something in his voice must have convinced her, because she nodded and gestured toward the chairs against the wall. They sat. They waited. Marcus watched the front doors, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his teeth. 3 minutes. Then 4. The roar of motorcycles split the air. Tank burst through the front doors first, followed by Shadow and 2 other brothers Marcus didn't recognize. They moved with military precision, scanning the hallway, the office, the windows. Princess, you good? I'm fine. Elena stood up. The SUV. Gone. They left the second they heard us coming. Tank's expression was murderous. But we got a plate number, and your father's already tracking it. How did they know? Marcus asked. How did they know she was at this school? Her identity was supposed to be hidden. Tank's jaw tightened. That's what we're going to find out. Victor arrived at the compound 30 minutes later. He didn't speak when he walked in. Didn't need to. The fury radiating from him was palpable, a physical force that made everyone step back. Elena ran to him. He caught her in his arms, held her tight, and for just a moment his iron mask cracked. Fear bled through. The terror of a father who'd almost lost his child. Again. I'm okay, Dad. I'm okay. You're not going back to that school. Dad. This isn't a negotiation, Elena. Victor's voice was granite. They know where you are. They've been watching you, taking pictures. This ends now. So what I just hide forever, I let them win. You stay alive. That's winning. Elena pulled back, her eyes flashing. That's surviving. It's not the same thing. Right now, surviving is all that matters. But father and daughter stared at each other, 2 immovable forces, neither willing to bend. Ghost stepped forward. Victor. A word. They moved to the corner of the room, speaking in low voices that Marcus couldn't hear. Elena stood rigid, her hands clenched at her sides, her breath coming fast. He's scared, Marcus said quietly. That's all this is. He's scared of losing you. I know, but I can't live in a cage, Marcus. I won't. Maybe there's a middle ground. There's no middle ground with my father. You either do what he says or you don't. Ghost and Victor returned. Something had shifted in Victor's expression, still angry, still terrified, but with a cold calculation that hadn't been there before. We found the SUV, Ghost said. Abandoned in a warehouse district on the east side. But we also found something else. A phone. Looks like one of the demons dropped it when they ran. And, Elena asked, and we're going to use it to find out who leaked your location. Victor's smile was predatory. The demon riders made a mistake today. They got sloppy, and sloppy mistakes cost lives. That night, Marcus learned what Iron Wolf's justice really looked like. Victor came to his room at 11 o'clock, dressed in black, his cut over a bulletproof vest. Get dressed. You're coming with me. Where? To finish this. Marcus's stomach clenched. I don't understand. You will. Victor's eyes met his. You're part of this family now. That means you see what we do, what we're capable of. No secrets, no illusions. Marcus dressed in silence. Jeans, dark hoodie, the leather jacket the club had given him when he left the hospital. His hands were shaking and he couldn't make them stop. They rode in Victor's truck, part of a convoy that included 6 bikes and 2 other vehicles. No one spoke. The tension was thick enough to choke on. The warehouse loomed ahead, a rusted hulk on the edge of the river, the kind of place where bad things happened, and no one asked questions. They parked. They exited. They walked inside. What Marcus saw made his blood freeze. 3 men were tied to chairs in the center of the space, beaten bloody, their faces swollen beyond recognition. One was whimpering, another was unconscious, the third was screaming through a gag. "Meet the demon riders," Victor said calmly. "The driver and passenger from Dusty's diner, and the one on the end." He walked toward the screaming man. "That's Venom, their president." Marcus couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't look away. "We've been hunting them for 3 weeks," Victor continued. "They thought they were smart, thought they could hide, but nobody hides from the Iron Wolves forever." He pulled the gag from Venom's mouth. The man gasped, spat blood, and managed a defiant sneer. "You think this scares me? I've been tortured before. You can't break me." "I'm not trying to break you." Victor crouched down to eye level. "I'm trying to understand. Who told you where my daughter was? Who's been feeding you information about the club?" "Go to hell." Victor nodded slowly. Then he stood, pulled a knife from his belt, and drove it through Venom's hand. The scream echoed off the metal walls. Marcus flinched. His stomach heaved. But he didn't look away. "Who's the leak?" Victor asked again, his voice unchanged. Venom was sobbing now, blood streaming from his impaled hand. I can't. You can, and you will." Victor twisted the knife. "Because here's what's going to happen. Every minute you don't talk, you lose something. A finger, an ear, an eye. And when you run out of things to lose, we start on your friends." Okay, I'll talk. Just stop." Victor pulled the knife free. Venom slumped in his chair, gasping. "There's a prospect," he said between sobs. "One of yours. Name's Dean. Been feeding us intel for 6 months. Locations, schedules, everything. He's the one who told us about the girl." Marcus's heart stopped. Dean. The young prospect who'd been part of his escort the day he left the hospital. The one who'd smiled and shaken his hand and welcomed him to the family. A traitor. Victor's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. A cold, terrible fury that promised death. "Thank you," he said softly. Then he pulled out a phone, dialed a number, and spoke 4 words. "Bring me Dean." What happened next would haunt Marcus for the rest of his life. Dean arrived 20 minutes later, brought by Tank and Shadow. He walked in cocky, confident, clearly unaware of what awaited him. Then he saw Venom, saw the blood, saw Victor's face, and he ran. He made it 3 steps before Tank caught him, threw him to the ground, pinned him there with a boot on his back. "Please," Dean gasped. "Please, I can explain." "Explain what?" Victor's voice was ice. "Explain how you sold out your brothers. Explain how you put my daughter's life in danger for money." "I didn't. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. Hawk is in a burn unit. Diesel lost his left arm." Victor crouched down, grabbing Dean's hair, forcing his head up. "You did that. You." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, Victor, please. I trusted you. I brought you into my family. I gave you everything." Victor's grip tightened. "And you betrayed us, betrayed me, betrayed my daughter." He stood up, drew his gun. "Victor," Ghost's voice cut through the tension. "Not here. Not like this. We have rules. To hell with rules. The club votes on execution. You know that. We don't kill our own without a vote. He's not our own. He's a traitor. He's still a prospect. The rules apply." For a long, terrible moment, Marcus thought Victor would pull the trigger anyway. The gun didn't waver. His finger didn't move from the trigger. Then slowly he lowered the weapon. Fine. We vote. Tonight. He looked at Ghost. And then I want him buried where no one will ever find him. Ghost nodded. That can be arranged. They dragged Dean away, screaming and begging. Marcus watched him go, feeling numb, disconnected from his own body. You okay, kid? Tank's voice surprisingly gentle. I don't know. First time's always hard. Marcus looked at the big man. Does it get easier? Tank was quiet for a moment. Then he said, No, it doesn't. And if it ever does, that's when you need to worry. Victor approached Marcus. His gun holstered his hands, bloody. Now you understand, he said. This is what we do for family. This is what justice looks like in our world. Justice, Marcus repeated. The word felt hollow. You disagree, Marcus thought about Elena's face when she saw those photos. About Hawk in the burn unit. About Dean's betrayal and Venom's screams. He thought about the bullets in his own back, the scars he'd carry forever. No, he said finally. I don't disagree. Victor's hand landed on his shoulder. Good. Because the Demon Riders are finished. Their president will spend the rest of his life in prison confessing to every crime he's ever committed. Their soldiers are scattered. Their territory is ours. What about the ones who are still out there? They'll be dealt with. One by one. Until there's no one left who remembers the name Demon Riders. Victor's smile was cold. That's how wars end. Not with treaties. With extinction. As they walked out of the warehouse, leaving blood and broken men behind, Marcus felt something shift inside him. He should have been horrified, should have been disgusted by what he'd witnessed. Instead, he felt satisfaction. Cold, dark, undeniable satisfaction. The men who'd shot him, who'd threatened Elena, who'd burned his new brothers, they were done. Destroyed. Erased from the world. Was that justice he didn't know anymore? But it felt right. And maybe that was all that mattered. The vote happened at midnight. Every patched member of the Iron Wolves gathered in the main hall, their faces hard, their eyes cold. Marcus wasn't allowed inside, not a member, not a prospect, not yet part of the sacred rituals that governed club justice. But he heard the vote. Unanimous. Dean was dead before sunrise. Marcus didn't ask where they buried him. Didn't want to know. Some knowledge was too heavy to carry, and he was already carrying enough. Elena found him on the compound roof at 3 a.m, staring at the stars like they held answers. You should be sleeping, she said, settling beside him. So should you. Couldn't. Kept thinking about... She trailed off. They both knew what she meant. Does it ever get easier? Marcus asked. Knowing what your father does, what this life requires. Elena was quiet for a long moment. It doesn't get easier, but it gets more understandable. These men, the ones who hurt people, who threatened families, who burned Hawk and tried to kill me, they don't play by normal rules. You can't fight them with normal methods. That sounds like justification. Maybe it is. She turned to look at him. Does that change how you feel about me, about my father, about all of this? Marcus thought about it. Really thought. No, he said finally. I saw what I saw tonight. I know what the club does, and I'm not going to pretend I'm okay with all of it. He met her eyes. But I'm also not going to pretend that those men didn't deserve what happened to them. They shot me. They tried to kill you. They burned 2 of your father's brothers. So where does that leave us? Right here. Marcus took her hand. Together. Figuring it out as we go. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. I don't deserve you, Marcus Webb. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. She laughed soft and genuine, and some of the tension bled out of her shoulders. They stayed on the roof until dawn, watching the sky lighten, not talking, just existing in the same space. It was enough. The weeks that followed were the strangest of Marcus's life. With the demon riders destroyed, the compound relaxed. Brothers who'd been on edge for months started laughing again. Old ladies threw parties. The constant hum of tension that had underscored everything since the shooting finally faded. Marcus fell into a rhythm. Morning school with Elena, surrounded by classmates who still whispered, but no longer stared quite so openly. Afternoon's homework at the compound, often with Mia checking his answers and teasing him about his handwriting. Evening's dinner with the club, listening to stories about runs and rallies, and the old days when the Iron Wolves were young and wild and unbreakable. It felt like family. Real family. The kind Marcus had never known. "You're smiling," Tank observed one evening, catching Marcus grinning at something Elena had said. "Is that a crime? It's suspicious." But Tank was smiling too. "Good to see, kid. You've been through hell. You deserve some happiness." "Thanks, Tank. Don't thank me yet. Your physical therapy session is in an hour, and Denise is in a mood." Marcus groaned. His back was healing well. The doctors were amazed at his progress, but physical therapy remained torture. Denise, his therapist, seemed to take personal pleasure in making him suffer. "Can't I skip just this once?" "Not a chance. Victor's orders. You heal right, or you don't heal at all." Victor's orders. Marcus had noticed that phrase appearing more and more often. Victor wanted Marcus to eat better, so the compound kitchen started preparing extra protein for him. Victor wanted Marcus to sleep more, so Tank enforced a strict lights-out policy. Victor wanted Marcus to feel at home, so brothers went out of their way to include him in conversations, in activities, in the small rituals that made up club life. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt like being cared for. "He's protective," Elena explained when Marcus mentioned it. "It's how he shows love. He can't say the words, so he acts instead. He's protective of you. I'm just some kid who got shot. You're the kid who saved his daughter. In his mind, that makes you more valuable than half the men in this club." Elena squeezed his hand. "Accept it, Marcus. Let yourself be loved. Let yourself be loved." Such simple words. Such an impossible ask for someone who'd spent 17 years convinced he was unlovable. But Marcus was trying. God, how he was trying. Then Hawk woke up. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. Tank burst into Marcus's room without knocking his face split by a grin that looked almost painful. "He's awake. Hawk's awake. Let's go." They piled into trucks and bikes, the entire compound mobilizing in minutes. Marcus rode with Elena, her hand gripping his so tight he could feel the bones. "He's been unconscious for 3 weeks," she said. "The doctors weren't sure he'd ever wake up." But he did. He did. Tears streamed down her face. "He's a fighter. Always has been." The hospital waiting room filled with leather and attitude. Nurses who'd learned to give the Iron Wolves a wide berth hurried past. Doctors exchanged nervous glances. Victor emerged from Hawk's room 20 minutes later, and the relief on his face said everything. "He's weak, can barely talk, but he's going to be okay." His voice cracked on the last word. "He's going to make it." The club erupted. Men who'd kill without hesitation were crying, hugging, laughing through tears. Marcus watched it all, feeling like an outsider witnessing something sacred. Then Victor's eyes found his. "He wants to see you." Marcus's heart stuttered. Me. Why? Go find out. The walk to Hawk's room was the longest of Marcus's life. Each step felt weighted significant, like he was approaching something that would change him. Hawk looked terrible. Burns covered half his body wrapped in bandages that couldn't hide the damage beneath. His face was swollen, his eyes barely visible through the bruising. But he was alive. Breathing. Looking at Marcus with something that might have been a smile. There he is. Hawk's voice was a rasp, barely audible. The kid with more guts than sense. I could say the same about you. Hawk laughed, then winced. Don't make me laugh. Hurts like hell. Sorry. Don't be. Hawk's good hand reached out, and Marcus took it. I heard what you did. At the warehouse. You stood there while Victor did what needed doing. Didn't flinch. Didn't run. I wanted to. Both of those things. But you didn't. That's what matters. Hawk squeezed his hand weakly. You've got iron in you, kid. Real iron. The kind that doesn't bend. I don't feel very iron? Nobody does. That's the secret. Hawk's eyes were starting to droop, exhaustion pulling him under. You belong here, Marcus Webb. Don't let anyone tell you different. Not even yourself. He was asleep before Marcus could respond. Marcus sat there for a long moment, holding Hawk's hand, processing words that felt like a benediction. You belong here. 3 months ago, Marcus Webb had belonged nowhere, had been nobody, had expected nothing from life except more of the same. Now he had a family, a girlfriend, brothers who'd die for him and kill for him in equal measure. He had a home. When he finally left Hawk's room, Elena was waiting in the hallway. She took one look at his face and pulled him into a hug. You okay? Yeah. Marcus's voice was thick. Yeah, I think I am. The following weeks brought changes Marcus hadn't anticipated. Victor started including him in meetings. Not the serious club business. Marcus wasn't patched, wasn't even a prospect, but the planning sessions, the strategy discussions, the conversations about the future. You're smart, Victor explained when Marcus asked why. You see things others miss, and you've got no stake in club politics, which means you can speak truth without agenda. I'm 17. What do I know about running a motorcycle club? More than you think. And you'll learn the rest. Victor's eyes held something that looked almost like pride. If you want to, that is. If I want to, I told you before the club's never going to force you into anything. You can go to college, build a career, live a normal life with our protection, or... Victor paused. Or you can prospect when you turn 18. Earn your patch. Become a full member. Marcus's heart hammered. You'd let me prospect? I'd sponsor you myself. Victor leaned forward. But that's a decision for later. For now, you focus on healing on school, on being a kid. You've got time. Time. Such a foreign concept to someone who'd spent his whole life sprinting from one crisis to the next. But Victor was right. The danger had passed. The demon riders were destroyed. Elena was safe. Marcus was healing. For the first time in 17 years, he had the luxury of thinking about the future. I want to learn to ride, Marcus said suddenly. A motorcycle. I want to learn. Victor's smile was slow and genuine. Tank will teach you. He's the best. Tank was, in fact, an excellent teacher, demanding, patient, and absolutely merciless about safety. You drop my bike, you're running laps until you puke, he warned on their first lesson. This isn't a game. These machines will kill you if you disrespect them. I thought you said you'd teach me. I am teaching you. Lesson 1: fear is healthy. Overconfidence is death. The lessons continued daily. Balance, control, throttle management, braking. Marcus fell off more times than he could count, scraped his knees raw, bruised his ego repeatedly. But slowly, steadily, he improved. Not bad, Tank admitted after Marcus completed his first successful lap around the compound. You've got natural balance. Must be all that invisibility training. Invisibility training. Moving through the world without being noticed. It's a skill. Transfers to riding better than you'd think. Elena watched his progress with barely concealed excitement. Dad's already talking about what kind of bike you should get. I can't afford a bike. The club will... No. Marcus's voice was firm. I appreciate everything your family's done for me, but I need to buy my own bike, with my own money. Elena studied him for a moment. Pride or principle? Both, maybe. I don't know. He ran a hand through his hair. I just need something that's mine, that I earned. Okay. She kissed his cheek. Then we save, together, and when you have enough, we go shopping. Together. The word wrapped around Marcus like a warm blanket. Everything they did now was together. Homework, meals, long walks around the compound, longer conversations about everything and nothing. Marcus told Elena about his childhood, the foster homes, the neglect, the years of feeling worthless. She listened without pity, without judgment, just held his hand and let him speak. Elena told Marcus about her mother, the cancer, the funeral, the way her father had closed off emotionally for years after becoming the Iron Man everyone feared. She cried, and Marcus held her, and they both understood each other a little better. We're broken, Elena said one night, curled against him on the compound roof. Both of us, in different ways. Maybe broken things fit together better, sharp edges matching up. That's either the most romantic or the most depressing thing I've ever heard. Can't it be both? She laughed and kissed him, and Marcus thought that maybe, just maybe, he was starting to understand what love felt like. Then Marcus's 18th birthday arrived. He'd almost forgotten about it. Birthdays had never meant much in foster care. Another year survived another year closer to aging out, another year of nothing changing. But the Iron Wolves didn't forget. He woke to find Elena standing over his bed, holding a cupcake with a single candle. "Happy birthday," she said. "Make a wish." Marcus looked at her, this beautiful, complicated girl who'd turned his world upside down, and realized he couldn't think of a single thing to wish for. "I think I have everything I need." "Cop out. Wish anyway." He closed his eyes, thought for a moment, and blew out the candle. "What did you wish for? If I tell you, it won't come true." Elena rolled her eyes, but didn't push. "Get dressed. Dad wants to see you." Victor was waiting in the main hall, surrounded by every patched member of the club. Ghost stood beside him, holding something wrapped in black cloth. Marcus's heart started pounding. 18 years old, Victor said as Marcus approached. "That's a milestone in this club. It means you're a man. It means you get to make your own choices." He took the wrapped object from Ghost and held it out. "This isn't membership, that you have to earn, but this is recognition. From me, from the club, for what you did and who you are." Marcus unwrapped the cloth with trembling hands. It was a leather vest. Not a full cut, no patches, no rockers, but real leather high quality, with a small iron wolf's emblem stitched over the heart. "Friend of the club," Ghost explained. "It means you're under our protection. It means your family. It means anyone who threatens you answers to all of us." Marcus couldn't speak. His throat had closed up entirely. "Put it on," Elena urged softly. He did. The leather was warm, supple, heavy with meaning. "Now the real question." Victor's voice dropped. "You're 18. You can prospect now if you want. Learn our ways, earn your patch, become a full brother." He paused. "Or you can go to college, build a different life. Keep the vest, keep our protection, but walk a different path." Every eye in the room was on Marcus. He thought about everything that had happened. The shooting, the hospital, the warehouse, the lessons, the love. He thought about the boy he'd been invisible, worthless, destined for nothing. He thought about the man he wanted to become. "I want to prospect," he said. "I want to earn my patch." The room erupted. Brothers cheered, stomped, slammed their fists on tables. Tank grabbed Marcus in a bear hug that lifted him off the ground. Shadow actually smiled, which Marcus hadn't thought possible. Victor waited until the noise died down, then stepped forward and gripped Marcus's shoulders. "This won't be easy. Prospecting is hell. You'll be tested, pushed, broken down, and rebuilt. Some men don't make it. I'll make it. I believe you will." Victor pulled him into a hug, the first hug he'd ever given Marcus. "Welcome to the family, son. For real this time." The word hit Marcus like a bullet to the heart. Son. He'd never been anyone's son. Not really. His birth parents had abandoned him before he was old enough to remember their faces. Foster parents had been caretakers, at best abusers at worst. But Victor Stokes, the most dangerous man Marcus had ever met, had just called him son. And Marcus believed him. The party lasted until dawn. Brothers told stories. Old ladies brought out food. Someone produced a guitar and started playing badly, while others sang along even worse. Elena stayed by Marcus's side through all of it, her hand in his, her smile brighter than he'd ever seen it. "You okay?" she asked as the sun began to rise. "I'm terrified," Marcus admitted. "Prospecting is going to be brutal. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm pretty sure your father is going to make my life hell just to prove I'm worthy of you." "Probably. He's protective like that." Elena leaned up and kissed him. "But you'll survive. You always do. And us. What happens to us while I'm prospecting? We keep going, together." She laced her fingers through his. "I didn't fall for you because life was easy, Marcus. I fell for you because you threw yourself on bullets without hesitation. A little prospecting hardship isn't going to scare me off." "You sure? I've never been more sure of anything." Marcus looked at her, at the compound around them, at the brothers who'd become family, at the future stretching out ahead of him, full of danger and purpose and belonging. 3 months ago he'd been invisible, worthless, destined for nothing. Now he was wearing iron wolf's leather, holding the hand of a girl he loved, preparing to earn his place in a brotherhood that would kill and die for him. It wasn't the life he'd planned, it wasn't the life he'd expected, but it was his. Really, truly his. And Marcus Webb was finally ready to live it. The morning after his birthday, Marcus started prospecting. Tank became his primary sponsor, responsible for teaching him everything a future Iron Wolf needed to know. The lessons were brutal. "Prospect," Tank's voice echoed across the compound at 5 a.m. "Get your ass out here." Marcus stumbled out of bed, barely awake, to find Tank holding a bucket and a scrub brush. "The bikes need cleaning. All of them. Spotless. You have until noon." That's 50 bikes. Then you better start moving. It was demeaning work, backbreaking, designed to test his commitment and break his ego. Marcus did it without complaint, because every time he wanted to quit, he thought about Elena's face in that diner, about the bullets he'd taken, about the family he'd found, and he kept scrubbing. The days blurred together. Cleaning, running errands, standing guard during meetings, learning the club's history, its rules, its sacred traditions. Marcus memorized everything. The founding members, the fallen brothers, the wars they'd won and lost, the code that governed their lives. A prospect's job is to serve, Ghost told him during one of their rare conversations. But it's also to learn. Watch. Listen. Understand. The men who make it to Patch are the ones who see this life for what it is and choose it anyway. And what is this life? Ghost considered the question. Brotherhood, family, purpose, also violence, danger, and the constant threat of prison or death. He smiled faintly. It's not for everyone, but for those it's for, there's nothing else like it. Marcus was starting to understand. He saw it in the way brothers covered each other during runs, in the way old ladies supported each other through tough times, in the way the club rallied around Hawk during his long recovery. This was more than a motorcycle club. It was a tribe, a nation unto itself. And Marcus wanted in. 3 months into prospecting, Victor called him into his office. "Close the door." Marcus obeyed, his heart hammering. Had he done something wrong? Failed some test he didn't know about? Relax. Victor gestured to a chair. "You're not in trouble. I just want to talk." Marcus sat, trying to calm his racing pulse. "You've been prospecting for 3 months. Tank says you're one of the best he's ever trained. Never complains, never cuts corners, works harder than men twice your age." "Thank you, sir. I'm not finished." Victor leaned forward. "You're also dating my daughter, living in my compound, embedded in my family. That creates complications." Marcus's stomach dropped. "If you want me to stop seeing Elena..." "I didn't say that." Victor's expression softened slightly. "What I want is to understand your intentions, not as your VP, but as her father." "My intentions? Do you love her?" The question hung in the air between them. "Yes." Marcus's voice was steady. "I love her. I'd die for her. I almost did. Dying's easy. Living for someone is harder." Victor studied him. "Elena's been through hell. Losing her mother. Growing up in this life. The constant danger, the isolation, the weight of being my daughter. She deserves someone who'll stand by her through all of it. Not just the bullets, but the boring stuff, too. The hard conversations, the compromises. The daily choice to stay when leaving would be easier. I'm not leaving. Easy to say now. Harder when the romance fades and reality sets in." Marcus met Victor's eyes. 3 months ago, I had nothing. No family. No future. No reason to believe life would ever be more than survival. Then I threw myself on bullets for a girl I'd never spoken to, and everything changed. He leaned forward. Elena didn't just change my circumstances. She changed me, who I am, what I believe is possible. She made me want to be someone worth loving. His voice thickened. "So no, I'm not leaving. Not when things get hard. Not when the romance fades. Not ever. Because she's not just my girlfriend, she's my reason." Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Good answer." He stood up and extended his hand. "You have my blessing. Officially. Don't make me regret it." Marcus shook his hand, relief flooding through him. "Thank you. Thank me by taking care of her. That's all I've ever wanted." As Marcus left Victor's office, he found Elena waiting in the hallway, her expression anxious. "Well, what did he say?" Marcus smiled. "He gave us his blessing." Elena's face transformed with joy. She threw her arms around him, laughing and crying at the same time. "I was so scared. He's been so protective lately, and I thought he just wanted to make sure I was serious." Marcus kissed her forehead. "I convinced him." "How?" "I told him the truth, that you're my reason for everything." He pulled back to look at her. "That I love you." Elena's breath caught. "You've never said that before. Not like that." "I know. I was scared." He cupped her face in his hands. "But I'm not scared anymore. I love you, Elena Stokes, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I love you too, Marcus Webb. Bullet scars and all." They stood there in the hallway, holding each other, two broken people who'd somehow found a way to fit together. And for the first time in his life, Marcus Webb knew exactly where he belonged. 6 more months passed, and Marcus Webb transformed. The scrawny foster kid who'd survived on invisibility was gone. In his place stood a man who walked with purpose, who spoke with confidence, who moved through the world like he belonged in it. Prospecting had broken him down and rebuilt him. Every grueling task, every sleepless night, every test of loyalty and endurance had carved away the boy he'd been and revealed the man underneath. Tank noticed it first. "You're different," he said one morning, watching Marcus clean the bikes with practiced efficiency. "Not just physically. Something in your eyes changed." "Good different or bad different? Jury's still out." But Tank was smiling. "Your vote's coming up. 2 weeks." Marcus's heart stuttered. 2 weeks? Ghost wants to move fast. You've proven yourself 10 times over. No point dragging it out. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, Marcus would either become a full member of the Iron Wolves or be cast out forever. There was no middle ground. No second chances. "Scared?" Tank asked. "Terrified?" "Good. Means you understand what's at stake." Tank clapped him on the shoulder. "You'll do fine, kid. I've sponsored a lot of prospects. You're the best I've ever trained." "You're just saying that." "I never just say anything." Tank's expression went serious. "You've got something most prospects don't. Heart. Not just courage, plenty of men have courage, but genuine heart. The kind that makes you throw yourself on bullets for a stranger." Marcus didn't know how to respond to that, so he just nodded and went back to cleaning bikes. But Tank's words stayed with him. Heart. Was that what had driven him that day at Dusty's diner? Not bravery, not heroism, but something deeper, something instinctive. He thought about it constantly over the next 2 weeks. Thought about who he'd been, who he'd become, who he wanted to be. The night before his vote, Elena found him on the compound roof, their usual spot for serious conversations. "Can't sleep?" she asked, settling beside him. "Can't stop thinking. About the vote, about everything." Marcus turned to look at her. "A year ago I was invisible. Nobody knew my name. Nobody cared if I lived or died. Now I'm about to become a member of one of the most powerful motorcycle clubs in the Southeast. Having second thoughts?" "No, that's the weird part." He shook his head slowly. "I've never been more sure of anything. This is where I belong. With you, with the club, with this life. But sometimes I wonder if I deserve it. All of it. The family, the brotherhood, you." Elena took his hand. "Marcus, you saved my life. You took bullets for a girl you'd never spoken to. You spent months proving yourself through prospecting. What more do you need to do to deserve this?" "I don't know. It just feels Too good to be true. Like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe that's the problem. Elena squeezed his hand. You've spent so long expecting the worst that you don't know how to accept the best. Marcus considered that. My whole life, whenever something good happened, it got taken away. Foster families that seemed nice would turn out to be abusive. Schools where I started making friends would transfer me somewhere else. Hope always led to disappointment. And now I have more good things than I know what to do with. You, the club, a future. And every day I wake up waiting for it to disappear. Elena shifted to face him fully. I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen. This life is dangerous. People get hurt. People die. But I can promise you this. She cupped his face in her hands. I'm not going anywhere. My father's not going anywhere. The club's not going anywhere. Whatever comes, we face it together. Together, Marcus repeated. Together. Always. She kissed him, then soft and deep and full of promise. And somewhere in the back of Marcus's mind, a wall crumbled. A defense he'd built over 17 years of disappointment finally gave way. He believed her. For the first time in his life, Marcus Webb truly believed that good things could last. The vote happened at midnight. Every patched member of the Iron Wolves gathered in the main hall, their faces solemn, their cuts gleaming under the overhead lights. This was sacred ground, sacred ritual. The moment when a prospect either became a brother or became nothing. Marcus stood outside the closed doors, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his teeth. Tank stood beside him, calm as always. Whatever happens in there, you did good. Remember that. What if they vote no, they won't? But what if they do? Tank turned to face him. Then you walk away with your head high, knowing you gave everything you had. No shame in that. He paused. But they won't vote no. You've earned this, Marcus. Every brother in that room knows it. The doors swung open. Shadow stood in the entrance, his face unreadable. Prospect, step forward. Marcus walked into the hall on legs that felt like water. Every eye tracked him as he moved toward the center of the room where Ghost and Victor waited. Ghost spoke first, his voice carrying to every corner. Marcus Webb, you came to us a stranger. A boy who threw himself on bullets for our princess without knowing who she was or what it would cost him. In the months since you've proven yourself through service, through loyalty, through dedication. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. Tonight, we vote on whether to accept you as a full member of the Iron Wolves, whether to call you brother, whether to bind your fate to ours forever. Victor stepped forward. The vote must be unanimous. One objection, and you walk away. No second chances. No appeals. His eyes met Marcus's. Do you understand what you're asking for? Yes. Say it, out loud, so every brother can hear. Marcus straightened his spine. I'm asking to become an Iron Wolf, to wear your patch, to live by your code, to die for my brothers if necessary, and to kill for them if required. And if we ask you to do things that break the law, things that might cost you your freedom, then I do them, because the club comes first. Always. Ghost nodded slowly. The vote will proceed. Every patched member will cast his ballot. Majority isn't enough, it must be unanimous. One by one, the brothers voted. Tank, yes. Shadow, yes. Hawk, still recovering, but present for this moment. Hell yes. Diesel, his left arm in a sling from the burns. Yes, brother. Priest, yes. Razor, yes. On and on it went. Every name Marcus had learned. Every face he'd memorized. Every brother who'd tested him, pushed him, broken him down, and built him back up. All of them voted yes. Finally, only 2 votes remained. Ghost stepped forward. My vote is yes. Victor was last. He walked toward Marcus slowly, his boots echoing in the silent hall. Father and future son-in-law, VP and prospect. 2 men bound by blood debt and something deeper. When you walked into this club, Victor said quietly, I saw a scared kid with nothing to lose. I thought you'd break within a month. I thought the life would be too hard, the cost too high. Marcus's throat tightened. I was wrong. Victor's voice carried now, letting everyone hear. You're not that scared kid anymore. You're a man I'm proud to call brother, a man I'm proud to call family. He extended his hand. My vote is yes. Welcome to the Iron Wolves, Marcus Webb. The room erupted. Brothers surged forward, grabbing Marcus, hugging him, pounding his back, shouting congratulations. Someone produced a bottle of whiskey. Someone else started a chant, Iron Wolf, Iron Wolf, Iron Wolf. But Marcus barely heard any of it, because Victor was pressing something into his hands. A cut, a real cut. Full patches, full rockers, the Iron Wolves emblem blazing across the back. Put it on, Victor said. You've earned it. Marcus's hands shook as he slipped off the prospect vest and pulled on the cut. The leather was heavier than he expected. Heavier with meaning, with history, with the weight of belonging to something bigger than himself. How does it feel? Tank asked, appearing at his side. Marcus looked around the room, at the brothers who'd become family, at Elena, standing in the doorway with tears streaming down her face, at Victor watching him with something that looked almost like paternal pride. Like home, Marcus said. It feels like home. The party lasted until dawn. Brothers told stories about their own patch ceremonies. Old ladies welcomed Marcus officially into the fold. Even Ghost, normally reserved, shared a rare smile and a rarer hug. But the moment Marcus would remember forever came just before sunrise. Victor pulled him aside away from the celebration to a quiet corner of the compound. I need to give you something, Victor said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a challenge coin. This was mine, given to me by the man who sponsored me 23 years ago. The coin was worn smooth by years of handling. The Iron Wolves emblem was barely visible, rubbed away by countless fingers. I've never given this to anyone, Victor continued. Not even my closest brothers. But you. He pressed the coin into Marcus's palm. You saved my daughter. You earned your patch. And in 2 years you're going to marry her. Marcus's head snapped up. What? Don't play dumb. I see how you look at her, how she looks at you. Victor's expression softened. When the time comes, you'll have my blessing. More than that, you'll have my support. I don't know what to say. Say you'll take care of her. That's all I've ever wanted. I will, I swear it. Victor nodded. Then we're done here. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Marcus call me Victor from now on. Sir is for prospects and strangers. You're neither anymore. He walked away, leaving Marcus standing alone with a challenge coin in his palm, and a future brighter than he'd ever imagined. Elena found him moments later. What did he say? He gave me his blessing for everything. Marcus showed her the coin. And he gave me this. Elena's eyes widened. That's his personal coin. He's never... She looked up at him. Marcus, do you understand what this means? I think I'm starting to. He's not just accepting you. He's claiming you, as family, as his. Her voice broke. He's never done that for anyone since my mother died. Marcus pulled her close, feeling her tears soak through his new cut. I love him too. Is that weird to say? No, it's perfect. Elena laughed through her tears. God, we're a mess. Both of us. The best kind of mess. They stood there until the sun fully rose, wrapped in each other, surrounded by brothers who'd die for them. Home. This was home. The months that followed were the happiest of Marcus's life. He and Elena graduated high school together, walking across the stage hand in hand while the entire Iron Wolves chapter cheered from the audience. Mrs. Delacroix was there too healthy and sharp-eyed, thanks to the club's continuing care. I'm proud of you, boy, she said afterward, her English still broken, but her meaning clear. You found family. That is the most important thing. Marcus had hugged her tight. Thank you for taking me in, even when you didn't have to. You were easy to take in. Good heart, that one. She patted his chest. Now you have brothers to match it. College came next. Community college for now, with plans to transfer to a 4-year university. Marcus studied business, learning the skills he'd need to help manage the club's legitimate operations. Elena studied nursing, determined to help people the way the club's doctors had helped Marcus and Hawk. They got an apartment together. Small, simple, perfect. Their first real home that belonged to just them. But the club was never far. Friday nights were family dinners at the compound. Saturdays were for rides, long convoys of bikes thundering down mountain roads. Sundays were for church, not religious services, but club meetings, where business was discussed and disputes settled. Marcus thrived in this rhythm. The boy who'd spent years being invisible now stood among brothers who saw him, valued him, loved him. You're different, Tank observed one afternoon, watching Marcus work on his bike. Marcus had finally saved enough to buy his own a used Harley that he'd rebuilt from the ground up with Tank's help. You keep saying that, because you keep proving it. Tank handed him a wrench. When I first met you, you had this look in your eyes, like you were waiting for something bad to happen, like you didn't trust anything good to last. I remember. That look's gone now. Tank studied him. You finally believe, don't you, that this is real, that it's yours? Marcus considered the question. Yeah, he said finally. I believe it. Good. Took you long enough. They worked in companionable silence, the sound of wrenches and the smell of motor oil creating a comfort Marcus had never expected to find. This was his life now. Bikes and brotherhood. Elena and family. Purpose and belonging. Everything he'd never known he wanted. On the 1-year anniversary of the shooting, Marcus visited Dusty's diner. It had been rebuilt, the windows replaced, the bullet holes patched, the blood scrubbed away. But Marcus could still see it in his mind's eye. The gray sedan, the gun barrel. Elena bent over her calculus homework, oblivious to death approaching. He ordered coffee and sat in his old booth, the one by the emergency exit, the one where invisible Marcus Webb had spent countless hours pretending he was anywhere else. Elena found him there an hour later. I figured you'd be here, she said, sliding into the seat across from him. Just remembering. Good memories or bad? Both. He looked at her, this woman who'd changed everything. A year ago, I didn't know your name. Now I can't imagine my life without you in it. Funny how bullets bring people together. Is that what happened? Bullets brought us together? Elena reached across the table and took his hand. No, you brought us together. Your courage, your heart, your stupid, beautiful decision to tackle a stranger instead of running for your life. I don't regret it. I know. That's what makes it beautiful. They sat in silence for a moment, both of them thinking about that day, about all the days since. I want to marry you, Marcus said suddenly. Elena's eyes widened. Not today. Not even soon. But someday. When we're ready. When we've built a life together. He squeezed her hand. I want you to know that's where this is going for me. That's what I'm working toward. You're it, Elena. You're my forever. Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. It's not a proposal. It's a promise. Then yes. She laughed through her tears. Yes, I accept your non-proposal promise. Good. Because I already told your father, and it would be really awkward if you said no. You told my dad before asking me. I asked his permission 6 months ago, wanted to do things right. Elena stared at him. Marcus Webb, you are full of surprises. I try. She leaned across the table and kissed him right there in Dusty's diner, in the same spot where everything had changed. I love you, she whispered against his lips. I love you too. Always. They stayed until the dinner rush started, then rode back to the compound on Marcus's bike. Elena's arms wrapped tight around his waist, the wind whipping past them, the road stretching out toward a future neither of them could have imagined a year ago. That night, Victor called a meeting. Not a formal church, just a gathering of the core brothers. Ghost Tank, Shadow, Hawk, Diesel, Priest. And Marcus still getting used to being included in these inner circles. We've got a problem, Victor said. The Vipers. Marcus's blood went cold. I thought the Vipers were destroyed. The Demon Riders were destroyed. The Vipers are a different crew, out of Charlotte. They've been pushing into our territory for months. Victor's jaw tightened. They think we're weak. Think the war with the demons left us vulnerable. Are we? Hawk asked. His burns had healed, but the scars would never fade. No, but they don't know that yet. Victor looked around the room. We need to send a message. Let them know that the Iron Wolves are stronger than ever. What kind of message? Tank asked. The permanent kind. Marcus felt the weight of the words settle over him. Another war. More violence, more risk, but also more purpose, more protection, more family defending family. Whatever you need, Marcus said. I'm in. Victor's eyes found his. You sure you've got a lot to lose now? Elena, your future, everything you've built. That's exactly why I'm sure. Everything I have because of this club. I'm not going to sit back while someone threatens it. Ghost nodded slowly. Spoken like a true Iron Wolf. Spoken like family, Victor corrected. He looked around the table. We ride at dawn. Full strength. Show these Vipers what happens when you test the Iron Wolves. The meeting broke up, brothers heading to their rooms to prepare. But Victor stopped Marcus before he could leave. One more thing. Yeah, Victor reached into his cut and pulled out a patch. Small, simple. 4 words embroidered in gold thread. Road Captain. Iron Wolves. Marcus's jaw dropped. Victor. I can't. You can and you will. You've earned it. Victor pressed the patch into his hands. Tank's getting too old for the job. He recommended you as his replacement. Tank recommended me. Said you've got the best instincts he's ever seen. Said you read the road like you were born on it. Victor smiled. I agreed. Road Captain. One of the senior positions in the club. Responsible for planning routes, managing rides, keeping brothers safe on the road. I don't know what to say. Say you'll do the job right. Say you'll protect your brothers the way you protected my daughter. Marcus looked at the patch in his hands. Thought about everything that had led to this moment. The foster homes. The invisibility. The bullets. The blood. The belonging. I'll do it, he said. I'll make you proud. You already have, son. Victor gripped his shoulder. You already have. Marcus walked out of that meeting a different man than he'd walked in. Road captain, brother, future husband, son, all the things he'd never been, all the things he'd never expected to be. Elena was waiting for him outside, her face anxious. What happened? Is everything okay? Marcus showed her the patch. Her eyes went wide. Then she threw her arms around him, laughing and crying at the same time. I'm so proud of you, she whispered. So damn proud. Couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. That's what makes you special, Marcus. You don't need anyone. But you choose us anyway. He pulled back to look at her. I'll always choose you. Always choose this family, no matter what comes. Promise. Promise. They stood there in the compound courtyard, wrapped in each other, surrounded by the rumble of bikes and the laughter of brothers preparing for another ride, another fight, another day in the life they'd chosen. Marcus Webb had spent 17 years being invisible. Now he wore iron wolf's leather, held the woman he loved, and faced a future full of danger and purpose and belonging. He wasn't invisible anymore. He wasn't scared anymore. He wasn't alone anymore. And as the sun set over the compound and the engines roared to life for one more ride, Marcus Webb understood something he'd been searching for his entire life. Home wasn't a place. It wasn't a building or a city or a room. Home was the people who'd die for you and kill for you in equal measure. Home was the family you chose and the family that chose you back. Home was leather and chrome and brotherhood and love. Home was Elena's hand in his, and Victor's trust at his back, and Tank's laughter echoing across the compound. Home was right here, right now, forever. Marcus Webb had finally found where he belonged, and nothing, not rival gangs, not old fears, not the ghosts of a childhood spent in shadows, would ever take that from him. Because he wasn't the invisible boy anymore. He was an iron wolf. He was family. He was home.